A recent study done by the Howe Institute examined new home prices and construction costs from 2011 to 2021 and revealed that the prices of new homes in Canada are significantly inflated due to regulatory barriers. In Toronto, the government regulations and other market issues increased the cost of building new homes by $350,000. That's a 32% gap between construction costs and market prices. And the problem is even worse in Vancouver, where the price of a single detached home is inflated by nearly $1.3 million compared to the cost of building in a market without supply barriers. But the study also mentioned some recommendations for how to bring market prices more in line with the costs of construction, so that's what we'll take a look at in today's video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jessie McClellan, and I'm a real estate agent here in Oshawa, Ontario, and I make video content about our local real estate market here in Durham region and the GTA. But I also cover topics surrounding Canadian real estate, so if you're interested in that and would like to stay up to date on what's happening, please subscribe to the channel. So I think we've pretty much heard it all now about why housing has become so expensive in Canada. Everyone has their opinions on it, from immigration to the bidding process to zoning restrictions, and the list goes on. The study I mentioned highlights factors such as upfront development charges, limited land availability due to regulations, lack of transportation options, and limited competition among developers and builders as causes of these gaps. And that's all fine and dandy, but what can we actually do to fix those issues? Here are three things that stuck out to me that I think could help bring the cost of a home more in line with the cost of construction. The first one is implementing provincially mandated minimum targets for housing and assigning enforcement to neutral bodies that can impose fines on cities that fall behind and needlessly delay development. Similar to what we saw Ontario introduce with the More Homes Built Faster Act, where towns and cities are required to make a commitment to building a certain number of new homes, condos, and rental units over the next few years. The issue with this is that it was implemented at the provincial level and then basically left up to the cities and municipalities to figure out how to hit their targets, and it's not clear how or if those targets will even be enforced. There needs to be a plan on how cities can reach these targets and how the province plans on enforcing them. Unfortunately, government policies limiting the supply of housing is one of the major factors contributing to unaffordability in the real estate industry. But existing homeowners also often support these local government policies and zoning regulations that restrict new development. Everyone wants affordable housing until it has an effect on them, their property, or the community they live in. You either need to build up or out, and areas like where I live in Durham region can struggle with that because people don't want to lose farmland, sacrifice their view to condo buildings being built near them, or deal with any additional traffic near them, which are all understandable, but at some point something's gotta give. Now, the next idea is about setting a broad province or citywide target for increased density. Say 50%, for example, rather than imposing a minimum level on locations regardless of their existing densities, which vary greatly. This change would allow for a gradual increase in densities across the province, instead of setting a minimum target that may be too high to be sustainable or too low to have an impact. I can't remember exactly which one's off the top of my head, but I remember when Ontario announced their targets for cities that some mayors weren't 100% on board. I think part of that had to do with concerns about the one-size-fits-all approach, but part of it is also smaller communities not wanting to change and not wanting to see certain areas and land being developed or having higher density housing like condo apartments being built. But the population is going to continue to grow, and on top of that, we simply didn't build enough homes over the last decade, so it's time to catch up. The last proposal, and in my opinion, the most interesting proposal mentioned, is reforming the upfront fees on development. So for example, switching to user fees on services like water once the infrastructure is in place, and replacing other costs currently covered by per unit development charges with land value charges. Basically, some development charges that cities place on developers are on a per unit basis, and that deters developers from building more affordable units because they're paying fees per unit. So of course they're going to want to build a unit that can sell at a higher price point rather than one that would be more affordable to the buyer. Now, obviously, there would need to be restrictions and maximums put in place, and costs would still need to be incurred to help pay for the additional demand on the current infrastructure and any need for new additions to that infrastructure to support the growth. But a land value charge would help reduce the cost and would hopefully encourage more units to be built on the same size land. The current setup is contributing to why pre-construction prices sometimes don't look very appealing. It's partially why there's such a huge gap between construction costs and market value in places like Toronto and Vancouver. If they have these added costs baked in and they still have a profit margin to maintain, it's going to contribute to new construction homes being more expensive than their resale counterparts. And to be honest, I also think there was a shift in builders' mindset over the last few years. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like builders saw prices increase 30% over the course of a year and realized that all of these townhomes I sold 2 years ago for $500,000 that the owners are now taking possession of are now selling for $750,000, and they want a bigger piece of the pie. So I think we saw many of these builders say, if you're taking possession in 2 years, you're paying what I think it's worth in 2 years. And that's also a contributing factor to why some pre-construction prices, quite frankly, look unappealing compared to resale. Of course, that backfired a little bit now that the interest rates are up and prices are down. Many people were left either taking possession of a property that decreased in value or were unable to take possession because of those higher interest rates. And now I think we're starting to see the shift back to more appropriate pricing for new builds. Over the last few years, Canada has tried to help tackle affordability by making changes like the foreign buyer tax and offering federal financial support to buyers. But those are all changes to the demand side. And unfortunately, those aren't going to have a dramatic effect on prices until we do something about the supply side. In fact, they can actually have the opposite effect. Let me know your thoughts below. I thought the proposal of changing the development fee structure from a per unit fee to land value charge was really interesting because it's not something that I've seen anyone talk about yet. That's probably because it doesn't exactly make for a super catchy headline. But thanks for sticking with me until the end. That's all for this video. Click the subscribe button if you want to stay up to date on everything Durham Region real estate, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next one next week. Bye!